evening and welcome to the final installment of the How Did I Do It series, hosted by Research Technologies and Innovation Lab. So my name is Lucas, and it is my pleasure to introduce our guest tonight, Ms. Amber Britton. So Amber is an account specialist for the Tribune Publishing Company, and she has an extensive record of online marketing experience. In addition to being a student here, she also freelances as a social media management consultant for local businesses on Long Island, including several in Port Jefferson. Her work has received praise from Google Inc. and Get Responsible Up. So I think tonight she's going to talk with Dave and discuss her story to share with us. So I would like to invite the audience to welcome Amber.
So I'm Dave Ecker, and this is Amber. And Amber and I know each other, so we're just going to talk and try to ask some questions. If you guys have questions, you can throw up to ask us for anything, and so we can go from there.
Okay.
So Amber, how did you do it? Why are you sitting here? How is a student at Stony Brook be so successful as you are?
Well, I'm a little bit of an older student. I'm still a millennial, I like to say. Well, it's true, but a little bit of an older millennial. So I've been in the workforce for a long time, and then recently decided to come back to school because at some point in the company you hit a wall where you need the degree if you want to get any more promotion. That's kind of where I decided to come back.
Oh, that's great. And I know you're really great with social media, and that ends up being one of the ways you and I have connected and whatever else. What do you say, like, the tricks of the trade, the things to live by?
Funny you bring that up.
Oh, really?
So I have kind of 5 rules that I do everything by when I'm doing social media consulting or in my regular full-time job as an account manager. So for social media, number 1 is know your audience. The way I'm going to talk to a student at Stony Brook is much different than the way I'm going to talk to an interior decorator. And you have to know the nuances of how they want to be talked to, what's appropriate for the audience. You know, I don't know, a Walking Dead meme is not necessarily appropriate for a really fancy Fortune 500 company, and their boring graphs may not be appropriate for a 19-year-old. So you have to know your audience.
But are the boring graphs really going to get the attention of the right audience?
Yes. Depends what it is. Depends what it is. And that goes into the second one, which is if it isn't measured, it isn't worth doing. I've worked with companies that I've said, oh, well, I'm going to provide you analytics on this type of a basis. And they're like, oh, I don't care about analytics. Which just baffles me, because if you don't care about analytics, you have no idea if what you're doing is working. You have to be able to prove that what you're doing is making an impact. And that's how you test and get things better.
So what analytics have you looked at that really helps you tone and say, okay, this is one thing I wanted to post and post it this way versus posting something else or getting the message out?
Yeah, well, on social, every platform is different. So you can measure it in terms of your follower growth. You can measure in terms of your post reach and your post engagement. There's different things. You can also measure clicks back to your website depending on what it is you're trying to promote on social. There's all different metrics, and you kind of want to measure all of them. I like to measure followers on a weekly basis and then major post engagement on a monthly basis because it changes every day. People can scroll through your feed and see more.
So somebody like me who's starting to get involved with Twitter and trying to promote myself, whatever, should I start looking at what followers I want to gain and that be a metric, or do I want to look at my engagement of who's liking what I do as more important?
Twitter has a really great analytics tool that's free and until you get to an enterprise level, that you can look at all of your tweets. I use it on my personal account and see which tweets are popular, which are getting engagement. But in terms of followers, it's very easy to get a lot of followers on Twitter that are terrible.
Oh, really?
That are bots or spam. They're built to auto-follow you based on a keyword that you use in your tweet or hashtag. But if you want organic followers, that's really where you're going to get that done through engagement. I have a rule of anytime you tweet something, it should always have something blue in it. You should always be tagging someone, hashtagging, or have a link in it. If you're going to post a link to an article, you should be tagging at either the company that wrote the article or the article author themselves. And that gets you a lot of engagement because that person may see it and they may retweet you, and that's how you're going to get more followers. I mean, I don't have thousands of followers on my personal account, but I've helped others get very high follower growth through that simple measurement.
But I like that idea of if you're tweeting it, make sure it's blue.
Yep.
And that's a really cool thing. That's very good for somebody who's trying to get their message out and whatever else.
Your profile too, make sure your profile and your bio on Twitter is blue. Make sure that you're at where you work or that you're hashtagging your industry or something like that.
Now, do you really think it's good that everybody really gets involved in social media? Other examples of like really how this new social economy and social engagement is important for even us as just regular persons, at Stony Brook, as students, or whatever else?
Absolutely. It's incredibly, I would say it's crucial. As a business, if you're not on social, you're dead. Because your customers are on social, and they're going to talk about you whether you're there or not. So you should be there to steer the conversation in the direction you want it to go. I have a lot of people that are like, well, I'll use Facebook, but not Twitter. And each platform has a different voice. And so not every person needs every platform. You absolutely need a Facebook. Every business needs a Facebook. There's over 1 billion people on there. That's where you can find your customers. As you get into Twitter, Instagram, Snapchat, those aren't for every business. So you take it. For you personally, you absolutely need social presence. So if I'm hiring someone, the first thing I do is Google them.
Really?
After, if your resume passes muster, then I Google you and see what I can find. And if, one, I want to see something. I want to see that you have a social presence and you're not like completely disappeared from the world. But I also don't want to see pictures every 5 minutes of you out drinking on a Saturday night. Not that there's anything wrong with it, but it presents an image that you may not be responsible.
Now, would you think then you should have 2 social media presences, one for the public and one for private?
Some people do that. I don't agree with it. I think you just need to understand how privacy settings work, and you keep some posts public for the world to see and some posts private that only your friends and family see. And you might have a rule of, I don't friend work colleagues. I have a lot of colleagues that have that rule, just so that their things they do in their personal life don't become office gossip, and that's a good rule.
That's an interesting thing. I know my recent experience with Twitter is really a great one to show why I feel like the social economy is really working well. So I watch the Weather Channel most mornings. And there's this woman, Stephanie Abrams, who tweets a lot and gets into Periscope and all this other stuff. So the other morning she said that Pittsburgh and Buffalo are right near each other. And my son Josh was sitting there, and I go, Pittsburgh and Buffalo are like hundreds of miles away. So I Googled it, and I posted it on Twitter, and I go, Pittsburgh and Buffalo are nowhere near each other. And she's like, and within 5 seconds, she tweets back and goes, relatively speaking, please work with me here. And Josh gets all excited because it was on TV, and she was on commercial, and she's tweeting us back.
Yeah.
And I really think people don't understand that, how that really works in that new economy and everything else. And I think that is something that will really help people understand why that kind of engagement is so important.
It makes you feel special as a follower. It makes you, I mean, it's very easy to interface with celebrities. I was watching a show on Amazon Prime that has DJ Qualls in it. I don't know if you know who he is, but I really love him. He was in Road Trip. He's like the tall, super skinny, nerdy, lanky guy. And I think he's hilarious. And so I tweeted at him. I don't know who he is. Like, I don't know him. And he favorited my tweet. And it just makes you feel so special. You're like, oh, they saw it and they liked it. And that's what keeps your followers coming back. Some people have a team of people that does it for them. I know people that have worked for celebrities on their social media team, and so the celebrity's not always doing it themselves.
Right.
But that engagement, I think, is crucial to keep your fan base up.
Now, how do you try to increase your fan base? Like if you're trying to get where it's that organic method, what do you need to do that to try to increase that organic?
It's all about engagement. Really. One, you have to know. It helps to know your audience and to tweet or post things at the right time where you're just happening to catch a lot of traffic. But it's really engagement. I increased a lot of my clients' Twitter followers and Facebook followers, mostly Twitter because it's easier on engagement, by simply finding people searching for a certain keyword and talking to them. So for Stony Brook, I do the financial aid office and the social media manager for them. And they didn't have a lot of growth on Twitter. So I just started searching for people who were talking about Stony Brook, not even at Stony Brook's Twitter handle, and saying, oh my gosh, that's so great you got in, or can't wait to see if you hear back, or just whatever, just engaging with them, some emojis, whatever's relevant, and we just started climbing with Twitter followers. I think we increased, just in 2015, they were really big in 2014. 2015, I think I increased Twitter followers by 53% or something.
Wow, that's great.
Yeah.
So that really increases the engagement of what you're doing.
People just, I mean, I'm not asking them to follow me, I'm just talking to them, and they go and follow you.
Wow. Now, I know you put some stuff, let's see, what else things we have rules to live by? We changed subjects completely, so what other rules to live by?
Well, if it isn't measured, we talked about that. The other one is test everything, which is kind of going with it if it isn't measured. If a post doesn't work, then you test it again at a different time with maybe a different message. Or maybe you're going to test posting this graphic on Twitter, but this other graphic on Facebook. And just always be testing is really what you should be doing. And eventually you'll establish a baseline, specifically in email marketing, which is another one of my main subjects that I work in. You'll establish that this is your base subject line, this is your base button color, and then you test everything else against the base. And if something does well, that becomes your new base.
So how do you figure out to test, like we're talking email marketing, how do you test something to see, okay, does it work and meet your audience needs? What do you do?
Well, you first just try it. You just send something out. And then, so for email, opens are king. If you're not getting a lot of opens, it's your subject line, because that's not enticing people to open your email.
Right.
So if your opens are low, you know you have to test your subject line. If your subject line is high, but your click rate is low, then your content is somehow not resonating. So then you're going to test different button placement, different button colors, different language, and see what does best until you have a new baseline. And then you test again off of that. You just come up with something to test.
And by just sending different test emails each week is how you figure that out?
Every time. Yeah, we have a lot of regular campaigns, and so every time they go out, something gets tested.
And do you change one thing at a time, or do you change multiple?
One at a time. Because otherwise it can get, you don't know if your results are due to one other thing that you change. So it's best to do it one at a time to keep everything, you have kind of that control.
Now, when you're doing email marketing, how do you figure out the timing of when this sends?
It depends on the business. For publishing, so if you don't know, Tribune Publishing owns the LA Times, the Chicago Tribune, a bunch of other newspapers around the country, and so I'm talking to newspaper readers, and for them, we don't want to impact our unsubscribe rate.
Okay.
And so we have a golden rule of no more than twice a week. As a subscriber, you may get other emails from other departments within the company for e-commerce or something like that, but for subscriber communication, twice a week. Because more than that, people start unsubscribing. I would, because I get annoyed.
Right.
Stop emailing me. So, yeah.
Right. So that's good to know. All right. So
Organic equals quality. We kind of talked about that. You want organic growth. I see a lot of companies on Craigslist kind of looking for a recent college grad to increase their Facebook follower count by 2 million in a month, which is ridiculous. And they're not looking for quality. They're looking for quantity. And in the long term, as a business owner, it shouldn't matter what your quantity is. It's the quality of your followers. Because if you have organic growth followers, those are the ones that are going to buy your product, go to your website, actually read your message. Whereas those ones that you can just mass get don't really care what you're saying.
So like if I have 2 million followers, that's not really going to help me to move my product and my ideas forward. It's just going to be, oh yeah, they have 2 million, so it doesn't mean you're going to really get that engagement.
Not if 1.5 million of them are bots and they're real people. I mean,
So what is a bot?
Kim Kardashian has a lot of followers and that works for her because most of them are real people. But you can write a program to auto-follow people based on a keyword. I don't know what purpose that serves you for, but a lot of people do it. So you'll get followers that have no pictures, just the A, they have no tweets, and you can get a lot of those easily. It happens to me almost every time you tweet something, I'll get some follower that isn't really real.
Okay.
That's what you do.
That's good.
And then the last we've talked about a few times is just engage. You have to engage. You can't just post. You have to reply to comments. You have to find people and talk to them. That kind of thing.
So you have to continue to look at it.
Yeah, don't ignore comments. You have to write back.
That's good. So I know you have some other stuff. Any cute things you want to share?
Yeah, there's a couple of things. I have some examples.
So where do you want to go?
In addition to social media, when I work with a client, I do graphic design and web design for them, newsletter design. This is a blog graphic I made for Port Jeff Coffee. There should be another one if you click again. This is a graphic for their website. They had a gallery that images would scroll through. It's a painting, I think it's a Renoir painting, of a guy spitting out a drink. And if you can't see it, it says, "Life is too short to drink bad coffee. Try the good coffee with Port Jeff." And the client really liked that. They kind of gave me what they wanted, and I had to come up with it. And there's some social media. Also, there's another image graphic for the website. So there are a ton of free tools if you feel like you don't know anything about graphic design. My first degree is actually in art and graphic design, but I use a program called Canva, which is free. It's a web app. It allows you to, it's basically graphic design for dummies. You don't have to understand how to use Photoshop. It's very intuitive. You can upload your own images, and then it gives you all kinds of tutorials on how to edit them, how to add pictures and words together. It's really great, and so I use it for almost all my clients because they can easily take it over when I'm done.
That's great.
Yeah.
Especially when you're trying to really get into it, because not everybody understands how art works or graphic design. So that's a great way of trying to develop it. Now, do you think putting some of this stuff on a Facebook site or anything else really increases the engagement?
Yes, because it looks 10 times more professional than what you may come up with without a tool like this. If you don't have the money for Photoshop and you don't know about something like Canva, you might be making something in Microsoft Word Paint that's not going to look nearly as pretty, or you don't know where to find the background images, and if it looks unprofessional, people may not want to follow you as much.
So that's a great segue. I'm somebody who knows nothing about really an IT guy or whatever else. How would you find a background image to really integrate that into like Canva or something else?
So there's another really great website called Creative Commons, and that is where you can specifically search for images that are copyright free. There's different filters, so you can choose, I want to edit this image, I want to use it for commercial purposes, and then you can search by subject. So I'll put in the subject, see what images it comes up, and that saves me from having to buy images for clients and charge them more money. The one thing with Creative Commons is you have to give credit. So you'll see at the bottom, it doesn't have to be big, but it has to be there so you don't get sued, is the photo credit of the studio, where I got it, and then it says Creative Commons. But the website will give you the credit when you download the photo. You just have to make sure it's there to legally protect you and your client.
That's a great thing, because definitely that helps. Giving credit is always important because somebody else actually made it or took the photo, they should get credit.
There was a big issue recently with Taylor Swift. Apparently, when her album came out, she kept posting these really cute pictures of a little hand-drawn fox. It was not hers. An artist had drawn it. It was stolen from their website by her team, edited for her album, and she kept posting it on Instagram. The artist commented and just said, "I just want credit. I'm so excited and flattered you chose me." Wouldn't give credit. Eventually the picture was just taken down, but at that point they had some t-shirts and all kinds of stuff with it on it, so there was a big lawsuit that happened. So you never know where it's going to end up. You just want to cover your bases. For your own photos too, if you upload a photo to Flickr, it auto-sets it to have Creative Commons license so anyone can download it and use it. So you want to make sure it's ready. This is another gallery picture. Go back. I don't know why the pictures aren't showing up on that side.
Okay.
They're supposed to show up. So, well, there were two pictures there that were supposed to show you why I made this Pinterest board. I found a really cute, funny picture of a mug, and then I found a really funny meme that said, "No coffee, less problems, #MugLife." So that gave me an idea when it started getting really popular on the Facebook page was to make a whole Pinterest board about mug life. The description links back to the client's website, and almost everything has credit or links to the original product where you can buy it. So it's just Pinterest, you're just repinning things, but it made a difference in the metrics.
Oh, that's great.
So for this client, in 18 months that we contracted together, their Facebook increased by 34%. All organic growth. I think we did a couple ads, but it's the ads were promoting clicks to the website, not to the Facebook page. So it's pretty much all organic growth.
That's great. And that really goes back to your 5 things you gotta know.
Yes.
The organic growth and everything else.
Yeah. Now Twitter's a little more impressive.
Where's the impressive? We gotta look.
Twitter grew by 227%.
Oh my God.
All through engagement. They had a Twitter before I started, but there wasn't a lot of engagement, and with cross-promoting across social accounts, it kind of blew up, which was good. Yeah. And Pinterest over 200%. So they had a Pinterest that hadn't really been used, there were no followers. So by the time I started counting from that point, which was about 6 months, and we started using it actively, it grew 200%.
Fantastic.
So this isn't a funny one, but this is a pretty one. This is an interior design firm on Long Island. They have a very niche audience in that they only cater to other interior designers. Very hard to make a difference in metrics there because you're only talking about a very, very small group of people. But we did some things socially, graphic design, made a little bit of an impact, worked for us.
And what was it like, you said it's really a niche audience. How do you basically try to reach a very niche audience, which is probably 100, 200, 300 people, where that's all you can do, because you're not going to really increase followers too much more than that.
It's difficult when consulting because you can only say something so many times, and then it's up to the business to really implement it. So if you have a website but you don't have an e-com store, if you want to post things on social but there's no call to action other than come into the store physically, it's hard to do things online and get people to then transition to going offline and into the store. So it was very difficult to try to get new customers, especially when you're only talking about a small group of people. I got them a lot of follower growth of people interested in design or interested in hiring a decorator, but not actual interior designers that were going to leave their homes or their busy schedules to come into the office. So I told them a million times if we could start an e-com store and sell a few things online to the public, it would make a huge difference socially and metric-wise. I think they contacted me recently that they're looking into that now, which has been several months later, but so we'll see what happens. But we have set 4-month contracts, see what we can do in that 4 months.
So one thing, you've now gone back to being a student, and you've been successful outside. What advice do you give to a student for, like, what have you learned as something that they can take away from?
Advice. It would definitely be, I can't tell you how many times that I've hired someone who doesn't know how to write an email. So learn how to properly write an email. There's an etiquette. If you're emailing your boss, if I'm emailing you, it's one thing. I'd be like, hey, what's up? Here's what I gotta say, see ya. But if I'm emailing my boss, it's good morning, comma, space. It's like a letter, and you have a signature. And there are a lot of people that don't understand that, and that will talk to someone more senior than them, like if it was your bro. And you have to know how to communicate.
So you should put your bro as
No, not if you're trying to get a job.
Say, hi bud, how you doing?
And then the other thing would be always be learning. You know, always learn something new. I'm constantly taking webinars, reading books, reading articles, reading blogs on what's new. I have a beta test account with Apple and Facebook as a developer so that I can get early access to all the updates. I'm not a developer, you don't have to be one, you just have to tell them you are. And then I get all the updates in advance, and that lets me try the product before the customer. So I know how to change the marketing based on what they're going to experience.
Well, that's a really good idea, to basically be ahead of the customer and try to get some tips and tricks before.
Yeah, and having savvy friends who also get, like when Ello was coming out, I don't know if anyone remembers Ello, trying to be the new Facebook, and there were only the secret invites, and so you had to know someone to get one. A lot of people didn't. I was a lot of people's person they knew, but someone I knew had to give it to me. So always trying the new things. I was one of the first people to sign up for Google+, which nobody uses, but you want to try it. You want to make sure you have a presence. You don't want to ever miss out, so that when you meet the client, you can say, I know exactly how to use that.
Well, so one of my colleagues just started really using Google+, and it's something that I've now had to try to learn in the last few days of how to use and whatever else. What happens if there's a platform that, like Google+, that nobody really uses, but there's colleagues using it, and you find them interesting? And how do you balance that with all of the other social media that's going out there?
You have to pick and choose. You can't be on everything. Rather than do 10 things kind of haphazardly, do 4 things really, really well. So, I mean, I think I'm on every social media site, but I don't use them actively. I have my core that I use all the the time personally, and for clients, and everything else is kind of niche. But I make sure I have a presence on everyone. So I have my URL, I have my domain, I have a profile. So I'm there if someone needs me and finds me, and I'll get a notification, but I'm not always engaging on it.
If you had to say what are the top 4 of those core ones that you just said, somebody should be on,
Yeah.
what are they?
For business-wise, absolutely it's Facebook, Twitter, I'd say Instagram, and Pinterest. Those are by far the top 4. Personally, I would want Facebook. A lot of people, I don't know about anybody here, really over Facebook. For me, it's become a place where my mom is a lot. I love you, Mom. But, and it's a lot of like, share this for a prayer for this or whatever. And it's not so much engaging with my friends.
Right.
And I follow a lot of companies, so it's a lot of company things. So personal, I would say Twitter, Instagram, Snapchat. I mean, not really great for businesses for all of them, but I really love Snapchat. So.
That's good. Maybe we can throw out Snapchat, but Snapchat's a really great feature for like personal interactions and everything else.
Yeah, some businesses are using it really, really well, but it is not for everyone. And if you don't know what you're doing, I would just stay away from it. Top 4 personally, I didn't add a 4th one. It would be Reddit. Reddit's my total favorite.
Reddit? Really?
Reddit's my favorite.
Why?
Because it's the front page of the internet. Everything is there. I see
The front page
everything
of
before
the
anyone
internet.
else puts it on Facebook. I'm like, oh, I saw it a week ago on Reddit.
Really? So do you have a custom Reddit page, or do you just go to the reddit.com, whatever else?
I mean, I have a Reddit like login so I can comment and post and whatever, but you don't need one. You can just go read the front page and scroll through it. It's funny because I was talking to someone over the weekend that I didn't think was very tech savvy. They don't know how to use Twitter, but they were like, oh, I love Reddit. And they're like all on Reddit, and I was really surprised because I usually think of Reddit as being for really tech savvy people. And I was like, wow, I'm so impressed that you use Reddit all the time. So.
Well, it's really important. Like I have a Reddit like group that I'm in, but I've never gone to the front page. And I was thinking about that the other day. I really should figure out what Reddit is.
Yeah, I like to scroll through the front page and see the variety of stuff. You can get into dark hole in Reddit, so you have to be careful. Just go where you know.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah.
Let's see. Who we're doing this, I'm talking to, is important. Why are you so passionate about marketing, social media, and everything else? And why is it something you feel like, you know what, it's not something that's a niche anymore, everybody needs to be involved?
Yeah, well, you have to be marketing, right? Or else no one's going to buy your product or know about your product. So you always have to be marketing. But for me, I mean, like I said before, I went to go to school for graphic design and fine art. I was accepted to FIT's fine art program to finish my degree there and decided I was going to be famous. So I wasn't going to go to school anymore because I was going to be famous. That didn't work out. And in all of my jobs, I kept going back to the same type of position. Every time I would work somewhere new, I would be in some sort of a marketing management role. And I realized that once I got into a real marketing department, my analytical and my creative sides fused together, and I could use all of that experience I had and skill set that I had to make a difference. And that gets me excited to get up every day and come up with a new campaign and see if it does well.
Now, you said you wanted to be famous. So, and you said, so failure is something that a lot of people who are passionate and are groundbreaking innovators really have encountered. Have you encountered failure, and what happened?
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm not famous, so I failed there. I'm a singer, and I toured the country, did a national tour, I recorded a lot of albums, and I'm not famous. I mean, I did the auditions for American Idol, I did them for The Voice, I got close on The Voice, but I didn't ever make it on. And you fail. What can you do? You can either wallow in it, or you can be like, all right, whatever, it happened, and move on. And I failed at work. I've sent an email out to one market with another market's name on it. I can't unsend it, so the only thing you can do is admit your mistake, make a plan so it doesn't happen again, and move on. That's it. You can't wallow in it, or you'll never get out.
Have you ever sent an email to like thousands of people and it was completely wrong?
Yeah, I sent an email to a couple 100,000 people with the wrong market's name in the subject line and in the email. And I had to quickly eat it. You have to eat it. You have to say, I did this. I messed up. Here's what I did to fix it. I immediately sent another email with a let's try this again subject line, or I'm sorry subject line. so that the customers know that you realize you made a big mistake, and you're telling your stakeholders, I made a mistake, I fixed it, and here are the steps I'm going to take to make sure this never happens again.
So can you describe that example a little bit about what you sent out and what happened?
So I sent an email out to, I think it was, we have 2 papers in Florida, the South Florida Sun Sentinel and Orlando Sentinel. I sent an email to the South Florida Sun Sentinel with the Orlando Sentinel's name in it. They're very far away from each other. They're 2 very different papers. They have their own businesses. And I immediately started getting emails from executives like, what's going on? Why is the wrong name on this? What's happening? And first I looked to see whose fault it is. Is it my fault or is it someone else's fault? And when I realize it's mine, I have to immediately fix it. I can sit and wallow in it and be like, oh, what am I going to do? That's not going to help anything. You have to fix it. So I immediately fixed it, sent an email with the let's try this again, the subject line, the correct creative, and the correct market name. And then I emailed the stakeholders what happened, what I did, and what will never happen again. So I make a checklist of things I have to double check before anything happens so that this kind of thing can't slip through the cracks.
And do you find a checklist or a to-do list to be really valuable when you're doing stuff so that you can really show your bosses and your stakeholders that you can succeed?
Yes. I live in Google Drive and Evernote. Everything is there. If my Evernote stopped working or Google Drive disappeared one day, I would be lost forever. We use a lot. I use it for a lot. I have a lot of Gantt charts in Google where I keep track of projects, deliverables, steps to take to get things executed, and then my normal to-do list, even for my personal weekend days. Everything is in Evernote, so I can check my boxes off. Makes me feel accomplished and productive.
So you schedule everything. It sounds like you really schedule your life and how everything works.
Yeah.
Do you find that to be really keeps you on track and organized? Because I know so many people who don't, and they just say, oh, we're getting through life fine.
Yeah, I mean, it depends on your life, right? Like, I have a full-time job, I'm a full-time student, and I have started my own side business. And I'm a musician, and I'm a friend, and I have all these personal obligations. If I don't schedule my day, nothing would get done. So I'm scheduled from like 5:30 a.m. to like 11 p.m. And then I go to bed like a grandma because I'm exhausted. But everything is scheduled. At the beginning of the semester, I take all my syllabus from every teacher. I mark out every assignment, every exam, when I have to start studying, when I have to start working on a project. Because if it's not in there, it won't get done. So when a professor changes their syllabus halfway through the semester, I'm like, no, I was prepared. Like, I can't deal with this right now. But yeah, time management is huge, and I see a lot of people in my classes that don't have that skill yet, and it's so important once you're out. I mean, even if you're not a full-time student and have a full-time job, just to keep yourself on track with things.
Do you guys have any questions for Amber? Yes.
Okay, so I have like a specific question.
Okay.
So I found that when you pin something on Facebook, like a post, that it doesn't get as much reaches. Is that something that you've also found, or am I just like posting or pinning it at the wrong time?
So let's just repeat the question. So basically, the question was about when you pin something on Facebook, do you really find it gets as much interest as you know?
No. Because when you pin something, people are only going to see it if they actually go to your Facebook page, whereas the people you're following, your reach is based on the people that are seeing your posts in their newsfeed. So you're going to get as much reach as you're going to get after you posted that post. Once you've pinned it, the reach is basically going to decline or just stop because it's not going to be in people's news feeds. They're only going to see it if someone's physically going to facebook.com/your page. I think it helps so that if someone new goes to your page, that's the first thing they see, especially if you have like an event coming up. Like I would say this event would be pinned on the Facebook page to make sure it's the first thing people see when they go, because it's immediate. Otherwise, I would change that out all the time to keep it fresh. But it's not really going to help you in terms of reach. It may help you. It may help in engagement-wise, like whatever it's clicking to, that may increase as people visit your page.
Any other?
So I have a two-part question. I know before you spoke about, I guess, would you advise, especially for someone who's getting ready to graduate, would you advise against keeping your personal social media private, completely private?
So the question is, would you advise keeping your social media private if you're getting bad rates?
It depends. If I Google someone, if I'm hiring someone, I'm not typically looking for their Instagram. I'm really looking at the big two, Facebook and Twitter, and anything you may be tagged in. I would review, not so much make things unprivate. I'd rather see that you're there and I can see that you have a page and that it's private than not be able to see you at all. Which I don't think you can do in Facebook anymore. You used to be able to completely hide yourself from search results. I don't think you can do that anymore. But I would go through all of your tagged things and make sure that if I searched your username on Twitter, that I couldn't see other people tagging you in things you don't want to be tagged in. I did that. I found that I was tagged in like a YouTube video I did not want to be tagged in, and several unflattering photos, and I had to go remove all of that. You know, anytime you're searching for a job or a new gig, you want to make sure that's cleaned up. But I wouldn't, as long as you're there and I can see that you have a page, I wouldn't worry about being private.
Okay, and then also, like I have a Twitter, but I really don't use it anymore. So would you advise, if you're completely inactive on it, would you advise getting rid of it, or would you still think that just having it there available is?
If your username is awesome and you don't want to lose it, then I wouldn't delete it. Because then if you ever change your mind, you want to go back, you'll lose your username. You could use it in a very hands-off kind of way. So there's a tool called Buffer. I don't know if you know. It's free. There's a paid plan. I pay for the awesome plan. But you can use the free version, lasted me several years. And you can schedule, without ever going to Twitter, you can schedule things to tweet for you. So there's a bunch of newsletters I read every morning. It's basically like my newspaper. And I'll click an article, open it, and then buffer it to tweet later that day. I very rarely actually go around Twitter for my personal account unless I'm going to engage with someone to reply. So that's a way to keep it active without, that's my trick, without actually having to go log in every day and read through it and think of something clever to post. I just retweet, or I tweet a lot of articles like, whoa, can't believe I saw this. And it will auto-schedule it based on specific times. You can do it with Facebook, I think Google Plus as well. I use it for Facebook, LinkedIn, and Twitter.
It's called Buffer.
Buffer, yeah.
Anybody else have any questions?
Well, I want to kind of follow up with that. So do you think LinkedIn isn't enough? Because I personally hide all my social media except LinkedIn because I'm a little paranoid about it. I don't really want employers looking at my personal Facebook. But
Yeah.
is LinkedIn enough or?
Yes.
Oh,
I know a lot of people that have, is LinkedIn enough?
Okay.
yeah.
It's totally enough. There's a lot of people I see that don't have LinkedIn, and then you don't have anything. I think LinkedIn, at the very least, you have to have to show. I mean, it's a resume. It's a way for not only for an employer to see your resume, but also to see recommendations and references without having to call someone. And I'll typically say that if I'm looking for a new client, like, you can see my resume or my information on LinkedIn, and I have several recommendations there, which are the new, give me your list of references.
Any other questions? Sure.
For my instructional and my demo stuff, I mostly use YouTube. And either on Yammer or Facebook, I'll put links to the various videos depending on what it is. You didn't hardly mention YouTube at all. Do you use that as a tool?
So do I use YouTube as a tool, because I didn't mention it. I don't use it very often. My clients don't typically do anything video-wise. Starting to use it a little with the financial aid office at Stony Brook, because they're starting to make some YouTube videos that they want promoted. The same thing there would be to engage with the people that follow you, or the people that are commenting, the people that are subscribing. You can make a thank you for subscribing videos. But it's funny you bring that up, because a friend of mine just asked me to consult with her. She wants to make a YouTube channel for her kid, because apparently mom YouTube things are really popular. These people get paid so much money to open kid toys and play with them. It's ridiculous. So I'm going to start helping her with that, so I'll be diving into YouTube a little bit more. But cross-promoting it is definitely key. And I think for tech stuff, finding bloggers that talk about what you're making videos about and seeing if they feature your information would really help you get more traction, as well as Twitter more than Facebook.
Yeah, because I get very little feedback, but I have like 40, I think 8 followers, and I get like 400 hits a month. And, it's gradually building, but, you said it can't get her feedback. I don't really get feedback, at least in that medium, too often.
Yeah, I would reach out to bloggers that write about anything in relation to what you're making videos about and see if, can you use this video I made in one of your posts, or, what do you think about this? There's community sites, like Lifehacker is a great tech site, and they have a community section where you can post your own articles. So you could write a short article about whatever it is your video is about and post your video within it, and other community members could see it. That would help your view count as well.
That's really good.
Yeah, that was a good question.
Speaking of blogging, I have a question. Say I wanted to get into that something because I like writing, I like doing things, or just doing things about that. Should I stick to one subject or use a common username for a few different communities, for different subjects? And supposedly people can make maybe not a living off blogging, but decent money. I mean, would it possibly say maybe sell extra 100 a week by being a blogger?
Do you want to repeat some of that up and I'll answer?
So the question was blogging really useful, and what can you actually make money using blogging as a tool, as extra money, or a whole career?
Ridiculous amount of sites, and it's all just buy my book, buy my book, buy my book. So there are a lot of people out there trying to tell you how to make money blogging. For that, it's very difficult. You have to have a huge audience, and then you have to have the way you make money is you have ads on your blog. So once you have a huge audience, then advertisers will say, if I send you this product, will you review it? Or will you put our ad on? And then you'll get paid every time someone clicks. Or if you review, you have to put a link in there to buy the product, and if people click, you get paid. It's very hard to do that. WordPress, I've been trying to break into that for a while. WordPress has a secret number that they won't disclose, but once you hit that number, they will contact you and say, you can now have ads on your WordPress blog. As far as what to blog about, it depends what you want, what you're thinking about doing. I would say stay with a particular, you have better luck with a particular subject, especially if it's a niche subject, and then it's how you promote it. So blogging about coffee for the coffee client, I would constantly have to come up with recipes or find someone else's recipe or something, and then relate it back to the product. And staying in that realm was easy and good, and you don't want to vary too much from that because it takes away from your brand. But if you want to do a personal blog about whatever, you can go in all kinds of directions. And you can also have multiple. It's very easy in WordPress to switch between accounts. I had a professor advise me once to make a blog about a particular subject. So if you have sunglasses, write a blog about sunglasses, where you review every pair of sunglasses you own, grab all your friends' sunglasses, review those, and eventually people will start contacting you and saying, hey, if I send you this pair, will you review them? And that's your niche.
Actually, what I had more in mind was shades is just a username, say. But then I blog everything from reviewing the latest video game. But then completely different subject matter, reviewing gym type stuff, and then reviewing interpersonal relationships, college, workplace people, yes or no, or more reward stuff. All different subjects, but I have to organize it in a certain way. But under the same
I'd keep the subjects separate as separate blogs, because I'm a gamer too, and if I'm going to read a video game blog, I don't want to read about what you do in the gym. That would make me as a reader unsubscribe, because that's not what I come to you for. You want to be a leader in whatever you want to talk about.
True.
So I would make those 3 separate blogs.
I have the same account with separate
Yep.
categories of blogs.
Yep, you can have one WordPress account. WordPress is the platform I use for all of the blogging that I do. And I have multiple accounts, all different types of blogs. My clients' blogs, my personal ones, everything. And then you just switch between.
That's great. Any other questions? So are there any final thoughts you have that you'd like to share with the audience? Because I think you've really given us so much different things to think about that I think really, I'm overwhelmed.
In general, working terms, for those that are about to graduate and go to the workforce, do something you love. You may have to do something you don't love so much in the beginning, but it will get you to where you are eventually. You want to wake up and love going to work. You have a question? I have a question.
I was going to say, yeah.
What kind of advice would you have for someone who wants to go into marketing but enjoys every aspect of it?
So what kind of advice would you give to somebody who wants to enjoy marketing or go into marketing, but enjoys every aspect of life.
Because usually there are like specific roles within a company, like a social media person or an analytics person or an event planner, but like what happens if you like it all?
Well, you can try to look for a job at a startup, because startups don't typically have the resources that a large company does, and so you will do it all. You will do everything from analytics to social to everything. I got into social media marketing as a consultant through a Craigslist ad from a company that was looking to hire someone, totally contract, to help them out because they had no marketing department and didn't know what to do. And that's where I started and kind of realized I was good at it and stayed in that genre. But if you go into a corporate marketing agency or company, you're going to have a very rigid role that you have to stay in. Some flexibility, but not as much as you would have at a startup. So I would say start there until you find the area you really, really like. Or you can try different things and then see what fits better. You may think you like something and then you try it and you're like, oh, I really don't like this as much as I thought.
Yes?
My question kind of goes back to how you mentioned you should always be learning, which I think totally relates to marketing. There's so much to learn all the time. But in my experience, whenever I apply to a lot of internships, they always want you to know things. Like, I understand training makes everything a lot easier, but there's some things that you just don't learn in the classroom. So is there anything that you recommend specifically to, on your own, kind of learn more about marketing? Like, I know you mentioned WordPress, and like a lot of people want you to know how analytics work, but I've never worked with that before. So how do you do that on your own?
So how do you
Learn and do
find
that.
ways to learn how to do things without being in the classroom? A lot of it is just Google searching, like how to do WordPress analytics. As a Stony Brook student, while we are still here, lynda.com is amazing.
Which one, I'm sorry?
lynda.com. You get a free, I think a free subscription through Stony Brook as a student, and you can go on there and search how to do everything. I know how to use Evernote, but I took a whole Evernote course to learn how to do things I don't know how to do. They have it for Excel. You can teach yourself programming. You can teach yourself how to use an instrument. They have it for everything. And then I Google certifications. So I signed up for Google certifications to be notified when they do one. It's very rare that they do one where you actually get a certificate. And I got one for mobile app analytics. I'm mobile app analytics certified by Google. I took the multiple classes and they're all online. You take a little quiz at the end, and when you get to the very last one, you get a certificate number. That's on my resume and my LinkedIn. There's a ton of websites where you can get certified. Inbound is another company, INBOUND. You can get inbound marketing certified for free. It's intense. It's all online. You watch all these videos and you take this test at the end. And that's huge. It teaches you all different facets of marketing. And that would be a resume, something I add to my resume as well.
And from somebody who's an employer, volunteer somewhere. And let me tell you, I hire like 20 students, 25. If I get somebody who would volunteer and do it for free, trust me, it saves me money and I love it. Because then you're educating and getting to learn. And then also, basically, it's getting to be somebody who can really develop it without taking money from my budget. So if you think about all the departments here at Stony Brook, whatever else, if you think of one that says, oh, I'd love to volunteer for you, you may have to ask 3 or 4 different departments, but one will say yes, just because it's like free labor. And they'll give you access to their social media, they'll give you access to whatever, because they'll have somebody do that. And that's really something, it's how I know I got started, and a lot of students I've met, I said, oh, how'd you get the experience? Well, I volunteered at this company, and I did it for free, and I learned all this stuff because they let me do it. So volunteer is another great way to do it.
That answers your question too, volunteering as well. And I think having different jobs also helps. Like working for a small business, you have a lot more flexibility. I've had like a million jobs, so I've worked in a dog kennel, a doctor's office, a bookstore, a publishing company, salons. I worked at a cafeteria at a hospital once. Like I've worked everywhere, and in each job, depending on the size, you get to do different things. You're not always doing just what you were hired to do. So you can learn how that works.
Do you think that sometimes though that looks a little bit like you're jumping around? Like I always have like a billion things I'm doing, and I feel like sometimes it looks like I'm very scattered and I don't like focus on something.
So you don't have to put it on your resume.
Okay.
So just because I've had a million jobs, my resume is strictly my time at Tribune. Because I've been there for 6 years, that's as far back as I'll go. My LinkedIn goes a little bit further back to show that I've been an office manager and a personal assistant and that kind of stuff. But I don't put in all of those other crazy jobs that I had when I was much younger. But while you're figuring out what you want to do, you have the time to job hop. As long as your resume has a pretty good chronological history and not huge gaps, or there are gaps you can explain, you can totally omit jobs. I worked at a grocery store. I omitted that from my resume when I was trying to get a job at Newsday, which is where I started in publishing. I took that off and was like, oh, I just didn't work for a month or something.
So you mean if I look at your LinkedIn, I don't see professional singer and two?
You actually do see that. It's like my fun fact that I'm a singer in a band, yeah.
Well, but it's two in the nation and...
No.
Oh, why not?
It's a long time ago.
Any other questions?
Very good question.
Yes, exactly. So I want to thank you so much, Amber. I think this was great. Hopefully you guys all appreciate and learned something new, so thank you. Let us know if you have any questions. We'll be here for a little while and we'll go from there. Thanks so much for coming. That's it.
Yeah, I guess I know more about the resume.
Yeah.
Well, I suppose